Hey, and welcome! Today, we're going to dive into one of the most important books in all of Japanese history, the Manyoshu. Now, this is the country's oldest poetry collection, but what's so cool about it is that its voice feels, well, surprisingly modern. So how on earth does a 1,300-year-old book connect directly to our world today? Well, let's find out.
Okay, so our story actually kicks off with a really modern question. You might remember back in 2019, Japan announced its new imperial era name, Reiwa. But have you ever stopped to think, where did those two characters, Rei and Wa, actually come from? Turns out the answer is hidden deep inside a text from the distant past.
And here it is. This is the source. It's this beautiful line of prose written over 1,300 years ago, and it's describing a perfect spring day. The characters for Rei and Wa were lifted right out of this passage. But the really big deal here isn't just what it says, it's where it comes from.
Yeah, this choice was way more than just poetic. It was a huge cultural statement. And that brings us right into our first section. Let's uncover the ancient secret behind this modern name. So this was a massive historical shift. You've got to understand, for more than 1,000 years, these era names were always pulled from classic Chinese literature. So by choosing a source from right at home, from Japan itself for the very first time, well, that was a huge statement about the value of their own literary heritage. And that source? It's the Manyoshu. And this is not just any book. We're talking about the foundational anthology of Japanese poetry. It's this massive, incredible collection of voices from way back in the late 8th century. You could really say it's the literary soul of ancient Japan. So what is this book exactly? What gives it so much cultural weight? All right, let's take a closer look at Japan's very first great book of poems.
Okay, first off, let's just talk about the sheer scale of this thing. The Manyoshu has over 4,500 poems. 4,500, and they're spread across 20 volumes. So this was not some small, carefully picked selection. No, this was a monumental effort to capture the entire poetic spirit of an age. And that age we're talking about? It spanned over a century. Scholars have actually divided the whole collection into 4 distinct periods, covering roughly 120 years of poetic evolution. I mean, think about that. You're looking at generations of creativity, all captured in one single work.
But wait, how did they even write all this stuff? See, at the time, Japan didn't have its own phonetic alphabet yet. The solution they came up with was incredibly clever, a system that was later called manyogana. Basically, scribes would borrow Chinese characters, but they'd ignore the meaning and use them purely for their phonetic sound. Here's a perfect example of how this worked. Let's say you want to write the Japanese word for mountain, yama. You wouldn't use the actual Chinese character for mountain, no. Instead, you might grab the character for night, which is pronounced ya, and combine it with the character for hemp, which is pronounced ma. Put them together and what do you get? Yama. It's this brilliant linguistic puzzle, right?
But, as cool as that writing system is, it's not the real magic of the Manyoshu. Not even close. The real magic is the sheer diversity of the people who wrote these poems. We are about to hear voices from an era that has long since vanished.
This, right here, is what truly sets the Manyoshu apart from everything else. See, the poets weren't just the fancy elite. I mean, sure, you've got poems from emperors and empresses and court nobles, but you also have works from lower-ranking officials, from guards, and, this is the incredible part, from anonymous, everyday people whose names are just lost to history. And the best example of this has to be a special collection inside the anthology called the Azuma Uta, which means Eastern Songs. An entire volume, volume 14, is dedicated to over 230 of these poems, and they're all from the eastern provinces way out in the countryside far from the capital, and every single one of them was written by an author we just don't know.
So why is that such a big deal? Well, because these songs are like this raw, unfiltered window into the real lives of ordinary people. They sing about the ache of a long journey, that fierce love you have for your child, or just the simple hardship of a bad harvest, and it's all in their own words. For historians and linguists, these things are absolutely priceless treasures. They even preserve regional dialects from a time that feels, impossibly far away. So when you get this incredible range of voices, everyone from emperors all the way down to farmers, it creates this really unique poetic style, a kind of feeling that defines the entire collection. And it has a name, the bold spirit of Masura Oburi.
Yeah, so centuries later, we're in the Edo period, and this scholar, Kamo no Mabuchi, he gives this style a name, Masura Odubri. It basically translates to something like a masculine, grand, or bold spirit. What he was describing was a style of poetry that's just direct, powerful, and not all decorated and fancy.
And a great way to really get what Masorobuluri is all about is to compare it to what came next. The poetry from the later Han period was known for something called Toyoyameburi, which was much more feminine, elegant, and subtle. The spirit of the Manyoshu is totally different. It's less about hinting at things and more about direct, powerful, gut-punch emotion.
And funny enough, it was this exact quality, this bold spirit, that led to the Manyoshu's huge comeback. You see, for a long time, the book was kind of neglected, pushed to the side, but then scholars like Kama Numabuchi came along and rediscovered its raw power, and boom, it became a cornerstone of Japanese literature all over again.
All right, so we've looked at its history, we've met its writers, we've felt its unique style. Now let's bring it all home and talk about the incredible, enduring legacy of these myriad leaves.
Even the title itself holds this beautiful little secret. So the characters for Manyoshu literally translate to collection of 10,000 leaves. But here's the cool part. The word for leaves, yo, sounds exactly like the word for age or generation. So the title has this amazing double meaning. It's a collection of countless poems that was meant to last for countless ages.
And wow, has it endured? Just think about it for a second. We come full circle. That line that inspired the Reiwa era name, it was originally written as an intro to a bunch of poems about plum blossoms at a party hosted by a governor in the 8th century. And today, those exact same words are defining our present moment. That is just an unbelievable thread of cultural continuity.
And that really brings us to one last powerful thought. The Manyoshu isn't just some dusty old historical artifact. It's a living, breathing collection of voices, of joy, of sorrow, love, and wonder. I mean, if a simple description of a nice spring day can reach across 1,300 years to name our present, it just makes you wonder, right? What other universal truths, what other timeless human feelings are just sitting there in those ancient pages, waiting for us to rediscover them?